Jalen never thought his life would come to this. At just 15 years old, he found himself standing on a cold sidewalk with nowhere to go. His mom had kicked him out after a fight they couldn't fix. Jalen's black hair was messy, and his dark gray hoodie barely kept him warm against the chilly night. The city streets were unforgiving, but Jalen had no choice. He wandered through parks and alleys, trying to stay hidden from trouble but mostly feeling alone. One evening, as Jalen sat on a bench with his head down, a woman walked by. She had blonde hair pulled back neatly and wore a simple skin-colored dress that moved softly with the wind. Her eyes caught his tired face, and something inside her made her stop. Claire was her name. She wasn't rich or powerful, but she had a good heart and wanted to help. "Hey," Claire said softly, sitting beside Jalen. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" Jalen looked up, surprised. People usually ignored him or told him to move along, but Claire seemed different. He didn't answer right away. Years of mistrust made him quiet and careful. After a moment, he said, "I don't have anywhere to go." Claire nodded slowly. "You can come with me. I have a home, and I want to help." At first, Jalen wanted to say no. He didn't want to owe anyone anything. But something in Claire's voice felt honest. She didn't ask questions or judge him. She just wanted to help. After a long pause, he got up and followed her. Claire's apartment wasn't fancy, but it was warm and safe. Jalen noticed the light curtains, soft cushions, and small plants by the window. Claire handed him a clean shirt and a cup of hot tea. It was the first time in weeks that Jalen felt cared for. "You don't have to say anything if you don't want," Claire said, "but I'll help you get back on your feet." Days passed, and Claire helped Jalen find a small job at a nearby diner. She'd also talked to the school counselor to arrange his classes so he could finish school. Jalen felt like he was finally getting a chance. Claire checked in on him often, making sure he was okay and helping him with things he hadn't learned to do alone. Some people at school noticed how Claire looked after Jalen. They said she was a good woman for saving him. But not everyone saw the whole story. Jalen liked the safety Claire gave him, but he sometimes felt like he was losing control over his own life. Claire asked Jalen about his friends and made sure he spent time with people she trusted. She wanted to keep him away from the streets, but her way of caring sometimes felt too strict. Jalen didn't know how to tell her he needed space without losing the home she had given him. One night, Jalen lay awake thinking about everything. Claire's kindness had saved him from the streets, but the rules and constant watching made him feel trapped. He wanted freedom but was scared of going back to loneliness. He didn't know how to balance feeling safe and feeling himself. Even though Jalen was grateful, he started to wonder if Claire really understood what he needed. He wasn't just a kid to be fixed or controlled. He was a teen with dreams and fears, hoping someone would believe in him without asking for too much in return. Jalen knew his story was just beginning. He hoped someday he could find a way to live freely while still having someone who cared for him without using him. Until then, he kept going one day, one moment at a time. After living with Claire for a few weeks, Jalen started to settle into a routine. Claire made sure he had everything he needed: a clean room, fresh clothes, and food on the table. She helped him get a part-time job at a small diner near her apartment. Jalen wore his dark gray hoodie most days, but Claire bought him a few new shirts to wear when he went to work. Even though he felt out of place sometimes, the steady schedule gave him a sense of normalcy he hadn't known in a long time. Claire seemed proud when she talked about Jalen to her friends and family. She told them she had saved a young boy from the streets and was helping him build a better life. Jalen knew she meant well, but sometimes it felt like he was a project or a problem to fix, not a person. Claire would often ask questions about his past, his friends, and his plans for the future. She wanted to help, but Jalen wasn't sure if she understood what he really needed. At school, Jalen's classmates noticed Claire's presence in his life. Some admired her for stepping in to help a teen in trouble. Others whispered that maybe she was too controlling or that Jalen was only with her because he had no other options. Jalen tried not to care what people thought. He was focused on finishing his classes and keeping his job. Still, the pressure to act a certain way around Claire made him uncomfortable. Claire started controlling Jalen's phone and social media. She wanted to know who he talked to and what he did after school. At first, Jalen agreed because he didn't want to upset her. But as time went on, he felt like he was losing his freedom. Claire's constant checking made him feel like he wasn't trusted. Whenever Jalen tried to explain his need for privacy, Claire would remind him how much she had done to help him. Jalen felt stuck between gratitude and frustration. One evening, Claire insisted that Jalen spend less time with some of his old friends. She said they were a bad influence and would pull him back into a dangerous life. Jalen understood her concern, but those friends were the only people he trusted. He wanted to keep the peace, so he agreed, but inside he felt lonelier than ever. Jalen began to think about his future more seriously. He wanted to finish school and maybe find a way to live on his own someday. Claire supported his goals but often reminded him that she was the one paying the bills and providing a home. This made Jalen feel like he owed her more than just gratitude. One day at the diner, Jalen met another young man who had been in a similar situation. They talked about the struggles of trusting people who want to help but also control. Jalen realized he wasn't alone in feeling torn between needing help and wanting independence. This conversation gave him hope that he could find a balance. Back at home, Claire was preparing dinner when Jalen tried to talk to her about his feelings. He told her that sometimes he felt controlled, not cared for. Claire looked surprised and said she only wanted what was best for him. The conversation ended without a clear solution, but Jalen felt relieved that he had finally spoken up. Jalen knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy. He was grateful for Claire's help, but wanted to find a way to live without feeling trapped. He dreamed of a life where he could make his own choices and still have people who cared about him. Until then, he kept pushing forward, learning what it meant to grow up between kindness and control. Things started to change between Jalen and Claire as time went on. Claire's care became more demanding, and Jalen felt the weight of her expectations growing heavier. She wanted to know where he was every minute, who he was with, and what he was doing. Sometimes she would call him repeatedly during the day to check in. Jalen tried to answer politely, but inside he felt like he was losing himself. One afternoon, Jalen wanted to hang out with a friend from school after work. He told Claire about his plan, hoping she would understand. Instead, she asked for the friend's full name and phone number and said she wanted to meet him first. Jalen felt frustrated but didn't argue. He gave her the information, even though he knew it wasn't fair. Claire's control extended beyond Jalen's social life. She began managing his money, holding on to his paycheck from the diner and giving him only small amounts for personal use. She said she was helping him save for a better future, but Jalen felt powerless. The freedom to make even small decisions was slipping away. Jalen's schoolwork started to suffer under the stress. He found it harder to focus on classes when he was constantly worried about Claire's rules. Teachers noticed the change and asked if everything was okay, but Jalen didn't want to share his problems. He was embarrassed and unsure who he could trust. One night, Jalen's frustration boiled over. He confronted Claire about her controlling behavior and said he needed more freedom. Claire listened, but then reminded him that without her support, he might end up back on the streets. Her words felt like a warning and a threat all at once. After that argument, Jalen felt stuck. He wanted to believe Claire was helping him, but her way of showing care felt like a cage. Sometimes he thought about leaving, but the fear of homelessness and loneliness held him back. He didn't want to lose the stability she gave him, even if it came with strings. Jalen started to keep some secrets. Small things like texting a friend late at night or spending a little time outside without telling Claire. These moments felt like brief breaths of freedom, even if he knew they could cause trouble if discovered. At the diner, Jalen met an older man named Marcus who had been through tough times himself. Marcus shared stories about growing up with little support and how he learned to trust people slowly. He told Jalen that help should never make someone feel trapped, and that respect was just as important as kindness. Jalen thought about Marcus's words long after their talks. He realized that what he wanted was respect and trust, not just a roof over his head. He needed someone to believe in him without trying to control every part of his life. One afternoon, Jalen reached out to a school counselor again. He told her everything, the help he had received, but also the pressure and control he felt. The counselor listened carefully and promised to help him find a way to live more independently while staying safe. Jalen knew he had to find balance. Claire had saved him from the streets and given him opportunities, but he wanted to be more than just someone she took care of. He wanted to stand on his own feet and make his own choices. As days passed, Jalen worked quietly on planning his next steps. He saved a little money from his job, stayed connected with trusted friends, and leaned on the support from the counselor. Even though his path was difficult, he felt hope growing inside him. Jalen's story wasn't just about being saved from the streets. It was about finding freedom, respect, and a place where he could be himself. He wasn't ready to give up on Claire, but he knew that for his own happiness, things needed to change. Jalen's story began to spread quietly among people who knew him. Some of his classmates had heard about how Claire helped him out of the streets. Others noticed the tension when Claire seemed too involved in his life. Soon, whispers started online. Jalen's story was shared on social media, but it wasn't the way he expected. Instead of praise for Claire's kindness, some people said Jalen looked trapped, and others said Claire was controlling him. Some even accused her of using him. At first, Jalen didn't want to pay attention to the comments, but as the posts kept coming, he felt exposed and misunderstood. Strangers judged his life from afar without knowing the full story. It was confusing and painful. Jalen didn't want to be seen as a victim, but he also didn't want to lose the one safe place he had. One afternoon, Jalen sat with his school counselor and shared how the online attention made him feel. He explained that Claire did help him, but sometimes her care felt like a chain. The counselor told him it was okay to feel mixed emotions and reminded him that no one should make him feel controlled. Meanwhile, Claire heard about the online posts. She felt hurt and angry. In her mind, she had done everything possible to save Jalen from a bad life. She thought the criticism was unfair. She wanted to protect him, but her way of doing that was not always gentle. The online stories made her worry she was losing him. Jalen's friends at school were divided too. Some believed Claire's good intentions and tried to support Jalen. Others sided with the idea that he needed more freedom and less control. Jalen felt caught between these opinions. He wanted to find peace but didn't know how to fix the broken balance. One evening, Claire confronted Jalen. She said she was scared that he was slipping away from her. She told him that she loved him like her own son and wanted the best for him. Jalen listened but told her honestly that he needed space to grow and make mistakes. Claire's face showed sadness but also a hint of understanding. After the conversation, Jalen spent time thinking about what respect really meant. He realized that love and control were different things. Claire's love was real, but sometimes it came with rules that didn't allow him to breathe. He wanted to find a way to accept her help without losing himself. With support from the counselor, Jalen started to make small changes. He asked Claire to trust him more, promising to be responsible. Claire was hesitant but agreed to try. She gave him more freedom with his phone and his time with friends, but she still watched from a distance. Jalen also found strength in sharing his true story online himself. He wrote about the good and the hard parts. His honesty touched many people who understood what it was like to feel both helped and controlled. He found comfort in knowing he wasn't alone. As weeks passed, Jalen and Claire worked on their relationship. It wasn't perfect, and there were still moments of tension, but they learned to listen to each other. Claire started to see Jalen not just as someone she needed to save, but as a young man ready to stand on his own. Jalen knew the road ahead was still full of challenges, but he felt more hopeful. His story was changing from one of rescue to one of respect and growth. He was learning that true help meant giving someone the chance to be free, even if it meant letting go a little. Jalen felt the distance growing between him and Claire. The woman who once seemed like a lifeline was now someone he struggled to understand. After the online posts and their honest talks, things were not the same. Claire's care still came with rules and limits, but Jalen wanted more freedom than she was ready to give. One day, Claire called Jalen into the living room. Her face was serious. She told him she was worried about his future and that she wanted to protect him from making mistakes. Jalen listened, but felt a wall growing between them. He wanted to be trusted, not just protected. Claire's words reminded Jalen of all the times she had helped him, finding him clothes, helping with school, making sure he had a job. But now those acts felt like chains holding him back. He wanted to break free, but was scared of losing the safety she provided. The tension between them grew until one afternoon they had a big argument. Jalen told Claire that he couldn't live like this anymore. He needed to be his own person, even if it meant falling sometimes. Claire was hurt and angry. She said she had done everything for him and didn't understand why he wanted to push her away. After the fight, Jalen made a decision. He would move out and try to live on his own. It was scary, but he felt he had to find his own way. Claire was upset, but didn't stop him. She knew deep down that Jalen needed to grow, even if it was painful. Jalen found a small room to rent with the help of a local youth shelter. The space was tiny and simple, but it was his first real home. He bought groceries, cooked his own meals, and managed his money for the first time. It wasn't easy. Some nights he missed Claire's care, but he felt proud of his independence. Life on his own taught Jalen a lot. He learned how to balance work, school, and daily tasks. He made new friends who respected his space and encouraged him. Jalen still talked to Claire sometimes, but the relationship was different now, less control, more respect. Even with the challenges, Jalen felt alive in a way he hadn't before. He knew freedom came with responsibility, and he was ready to face it. He started setting goals, saving money, finishing school, and planning for the future. One evening, Jalen sat alone in his small room, thinking about everything he had been through. From the streets to Claire's home, and now in this new chapter. He felt thankful for Claire's help, but was glad he had taken the step to live on his own. It wasn't perfect, but it was his life. Jalen shared his story with others in the shelter, hoping to inspire teens like him to find their own path. He talked openly about how help can sometimes feel like control, and how important it was to find respect in any relationship. As time passed, Jalen grew stronger and more confident. He understood that healing and growth were not easy or quick, but he was determined. He wanted to build a life where he could be free and loved without losing himself. Jalen's journey was far from over, but he was no longer just a boy saved from the streets. He was a young man learning to live on his own terms, ready to face the future with courage and hope. Living on his own was a big change for Jalen. Some days were hard and some days were good. He had to learn to manage everything by himself, from cooking meals to paying bills. At first, the responsibility felt overwhelming. Sometimes he missed the security Claire had given him, even if it came with rules he didn't like. Jalen kept his job at the diner and worked hard to save money. He wanted to make sure he could support himself and not have to rely on anyone else again. The freedom felt good, but it also meant he had to be careful with his choices. Without someone watching over him, he had to learn from his own mistakes. One evening, Jalen went to a support group at the youth shelter. There, he met other young people who were also working to build better lives after difficult times. They shared their stories and gave each other advice. Jalen felt less alone knowing others faced similar struggles. Jalen also stayed in touch with his school counselor, who helped him with homework and planning for college. The counselor reminded him that asking for help wasn't a sign of weakness. Jalen began to understand that being independent didn't mean doing everything alone. Sometimes Claire called or sent messages. Their conversations were quieter now, more respectful and less about control. Jalen told her about his small victories, like passing a test or saving money. Claire seemed proud but kept her distance, giving Jalen space to grow. Jalen's confidence grew with each passing day. He started applying for scholarships and thinking about a future beyond just surviving. He dreamed of a stable job and a home where he could invite friends and feel safe. One afternoon, Jalen ran into an old friend from school. They talked about how much had changed. Jalen shared some of his struggles, but also the progress he had made. His friend was impressed by Jalen's strength and determination. Despite the progress, Jalen knew life wasn't perfect. Sometimes loneliness crept in, and the weight of responsibility felt heavy. He missed having someone to talk to without worrying about judgment or control. But he reminded himself that this was part of growing up. Jalen learned to celebrate small successes. Cooking a good meal, paying a bill on time, or finishing a school project became reasons to feel proud. Each step built his confidence and made the future seem more possible. He also started volunteering at the shelter to help other teens who were struggling. Sharing his story gave him purpose and reminded him how far he had come. Helping others made him feel connected and strong. Jalen's journey was still ongoing, but he felt hopeful. He was no longer the scared teen on the streets or the boy trapped by control. He was becoming a young man who could face challenges and make his own way. Through everything, Jalen remembered that true help was about respect and trust. He wanted to build relationships where he was free to be himself and supported without losing independence. Jalen's story was changing from one of rescue to one of strength and self-discovery. He knew the road ahead would have obstacles, but he was ready. Every day, he took steps toward a future he could call his own. Jalen's story reached many people online, and soon Claire's side was also shared. She talked about how she had wanted to save a young boy from the streets, believing she was doing the right thing. Claire explained that she cared deeply for Jalen and wanted to protect him from harm. She admitted that sometimes her way of helping was strict, but it came from a place of love. Many people on social media felt sorry for Claire. They understood her fear of losing Jalen and appreciated her efforts to support him. Others, however, said that no matter how good the intentions, controlling someone was not the same as caring. The online debate grew, showing how complicated situations like Jalen's could be. Jalen watched these conversations quietly. He didn't want to fight or prove who was right. Instead, he focused on living his life and finding balance. He knew that both he and Claire wanted good things, but sometimes their ways of showing care clashed. Back in real life, Jalen's relationship with Claire was changing. They spoke less often, and when they did, the talks were careful and calm. Claire tried to respect Jalen's need for independence, even though it was hard for her. Jalen appreciated the space but still felt sad about how things had changed. Jalen continued to work hard at the diner and stayed committed to school. He applied for scholarships and dreamed of a future where he could help others who had faced similar challenges. The idea of giving back motivated him every day. One day, Jalen met a social worker who helped young people like him find housing and jobs. The social worker encouraged Jalen to think about long-term goals and supported him in planning steps to reach them. Jalen realized that asking for help didn't mean he was weak. It meant he was smart. Jalen also reconnected with some old friends he had lost touch with during the hard times. These friendships were different now, based on trust and respect, not survival. Jalen enjoyed feeling like part of a community again. Though the past still weighed on Jalen sometimes, he learned to forgive, not just Claire, but himself too. He knew that both of them had made mistakes, but they had also tried their best. Forgiving helped him heal and move forward. Jalen dreamed of a life where he could be free and loved without strings attached. He wanted to build relationships based on trust and respect, where both people cared for each other without control or fear. As he looked toward the future, Jalen felt ready for whatever challenges might come. He was no longer the boy lost on the streets or the teen trapped by control. He was growing into a young man with hope, courage, and the strength to choose his own path. Jalen's story was a reminder that help can come in many forms, but true support means respect and freedom. He hoped that by sharing his experience, others would understand that kindness must come with trust, not control. Jalen's life had changed a lot since Claire first found him on the streets. Now he was standing on his own 2 feet. The small apartment he rented felt like a true home, even if it wasn't fancy. He managed his job, school, and daily life with growing confidence. Each day brought new challenges, but also new chances to prove to himself that he could handle them. Even though Jalen had moved out and gained independence, he still thought about Claire. He knew she had saved him when no one else would, but he also understood that help should never mean losing control. Their relationship was complicated, marked by both care and conflict. They didn't talk as often as before, but when they did, the conversations were respectful. Jalen was learning that growing up meant making mistakes and learning from them. Sometimes he slipped up, missing a bill, forgetting an appointment, or feeling overwhelmed. But instead of giving up, he used those moments as lessons. He reached out for help when he needed it, from friends, counselors, or support groups. Asking for help didn't make him weak, it made him strong. At school, Jalen was determined to finish his education. He applied for scholarships and worked on improving his grades. He dreamed of a future where he could live without fear, build his own family, and help others who struggled like he once did. Jalen also spent time volunteering at a local youth center. He shared his story with young people who were facing hard times. By talking openly about his journey, from being homeless to living independently, he hoped to inspire others not to lose hope. Jalen wanted to show that life could change, even when it felt impossible. Claire sometimes visited the youth center too. Their meetings were quiet but meaningful. Both had grown and learned to respect each other's space. Claire admitted that she wished she had handled things differently, and Jalen thanked her for giving him a chance when he needed it most. The community around Jalen became a support system. Friends, counselors, and mentors all played a part in his growth. He was no longer alone, and he no longer felt trapped by his past. Jalen often thought about what his story meant. It wasn't just about being saved from the streets. It was about finding freedom, respect, and self-worth. He understood that true help was not just about giving a place to live or money. It was about trust and allowing someone to be themselves. As Jalen looked ahead, he felt hopeful. He knew life would have ups and downs, but he was ready to face them. He was building a future that was his own, shaped by hard work, kindness, and respect. Jalen's journey reminded him and others that sometimes saving someone is more than just a good deed. It's about understanding, patience, and love that frees instead of binds. His story was far from over, but Jalen was proud of how far he had come. He was no longer just a boy who was saved. He was a young man creating his own path, ready for whatever the future held.